Well, hello. Welcome to another Coloring in Conversation. I hope you guys are having a great week so far or a great weekend. I will probably continue posting these every Monday that I get the opportunity. So let me know what you think and if you like them and if you're enjoying these, even though this is only the second one. But yes, I honestly cannot remember which page I colored. Oh, I think it was Betty. I think I'm going to color a page of Betty today because I actually did the coloring like a week ago, but so that's what we're going to do. And if you didn't know, this is from our published Meowsterpiece, the coolest cat coloring book for humans of all ages, which is going to be on sale for the Thanksgiving weekend Cyber Monday deal. That's going to be on sale until Tuesday at midnight, so until November 30th at technically 11:59 p.m. So if you want to grab a book, it's only, I think, $6.99 until basically until December 1st, 12 a.m. So yes, grab yours if you want it. And also feel free to join the Cat Lady Fitness family because we have another coloring book coming out that I'm currently working on. So excited for this one to come out because not only is it super fun to color and is stress management and all these cool things, but it's functional and it's going to be educational as well. And it's going to be double the size of this one. So it's going to be 100 coloring pages versus this one, our OG, our very first coloring book, which is a solid 50 pages. But anyway, welcome. If you couldn't tell from the thumbnail and from the title of this video, we are going to talk about something that left me traumatized that happened recently, probably about a month ago. And that's why we haven't had one of these coloring in conversations out, because I knew within a couple days, I'm like, okay, I have to talk about this for a couple of reasons. But I couldn't bring myself to actually talk about it for like almost a week until after it happened. So yeah, all right, here's what happened. Basically, you get the gist. I had my first experience being the culprit of Roadkill and taking the life of a super unfortunate furry creature. Yes, it was a furry creature. It was a raccoon. There's nothing I could have done about it. I was paying full attention to the road. I was going the speed limit, actually a little bit less than the speed limit. It was nighttime, and it jumped right out in front of the car to where there's nothing I could have done. It didn't give me any time. It wasn't at a distance in front of the car. It was like just right out the side of the car. In retrospect, I think about it, or actually I figured this out right away, but it was, like I said, it was nighttime. It was dark out. And it was the night before trash goes out. So everybody had their, it was on kind of a main-ish road, sort of like residential, but one of the main residential roads. And so everybody had their trash out because it was going out the next morning. And we all know that raccoons are, little dumpster divers, and they're, what do they call them? Trash kittens, basically. So yeah, so my guess is, oh my gosh, I can't even think about it. Like, I can't even bring myself to think about it right now. I don't know if you guys are like me. I cannot emotionally deal with seeing roadkill. And you see it a lot. You see it a lot in towns like where I live. I'm sure in basically all towns. Usually it's squirrels. Let's be honest. If you're an animal lover, it doesn't even freaking matter what kind of animal it is. You would think it'd be worse if it was a furry creature, so something, like a raccoon, like a squirrel, we don't have chipmunks down here in Florida. I don't know if you guys I remember because I'm from New York and we had chipmunks up there, but I don't think I've ever seen a chipmunk down here. But, and oh my God, heaven forbid you see something like a kitten or a dog, which thank goodness you really, it happens, but you don't see it often. There's a lot of parts here where you'll see deer in certain areas, like around the state parks and certain streets and roads in those areas, and sometimes wild boar. It's all heartbreaking, and I've dodged. I mean, knock on wood or whatever. I don't even know if I can at this point since it's happened, but I can't tell you how many squirrels and stuff I've dodged, you know. But what's interesting, so it will set me back emotionally if I see roadkill. Doesn't matter what kind. But oh my God, there was one time where it was a main oh God, thinking about it, it's like it brings back these emotions and these, but there was one time it was a main road and there's a Chinese drive-through on the corner, and I would go there every now and then and, you know, made friendly with the boy that worked in the window, and they had a little family of cats that like would hang out on the side of the place, and he said he would feed them sometimes, and it was like, he named her Meow, and it was some little mama cat, and like she had kittens. Anyway, long story short, months later, and I hadn't eaten at that place in a while, but months later I was turning this corner where the place was, and I saw maybe 2 feet into the road, I saw a kitten that had met its fate. Unfortunately, it was a kitten. You guys, as soon as I saw that, I had to pull. I was on my way to something too, it was like a time constraint. Didn't matter. I had to pull into the parking lot, and I just started bawling my eyes out, like heave crying. I mean, I'm almost like coming in tears just thinking about it. Just heave crying. And I called my brother, who lives like across the country, but I called my brother, just heave crying, just telling him what happened, telling him I just saw this kitten in the road that was hit by a car, and I don't even know what I said. Just, I wish I could have saved it. Why did that have to happen? I just don't understand. How did the person who hit it, like, a mess. And it's really interesting because those who know me, those who are closest to me, I'm not an easy crier, I would say. I'm not, openly emotional when it comes to like tears and sadness and things. I'm very solution oriented, very solution based. So even, I'll admit it, if somebody, like, I tend to give solutions rather than comfort when it comes to people maybe who just are sharing something. I don't know. I don't know. That's totally, I digress. But so I can completely acknowledge and recognize that, and tell me if you guys are similar, but it's displaced emotions. It has to be, because I think that it's such a feeling of sadness and just compassion when I see things like this. And it's just, like people I've had, and we're going to get into, something I want to get into after I guess, move on from this explanation and tangent about actual animals and roadkill. I'm going to move on to grief, which, and the stages of grief, really. But, I've had my father passed away. My grandmother passed away, both of which clearly were two very important people in my life. And I've, been times when a lot of people would shed tears immediately and kind of begin the stages of grief in quote unquote the typical way, which involves a lot of tears and sadness. And even though, disclaimer, what I'm going to say again is there is no right or wrong way when it comes to processing the death of something. Everybody goes through, and you guys hear me say this in the EFT and tapping videos, that everybody processes things differently. You go at your own pace through the stages, and that's fine. But I've definitely noticed in myself, so I'm curious to see if anybody else shares this or if you've noticed this about yourself, but I can recognize that I have displaced emotions because I won't cry. Like I was giving the example of somebody passing away right away, maybe not for a while. It won't hit me in that way, but I see Roadkill, basically just these helpless little animals. Or another example of how I know it's displaced emotions is certain anything to do with animals. So forget dodo videos and things. I mean, if I watch those any time near when my cycle is about to start, it's just a blubbering mess, let's be honest. But also things like, I can think specifically of, there's these holiday commercials. If you live in kind of like the Southeast United States, maybe you know what I'm talking about, but Publix is the supermarket, like the primary grocery store, supermarket down in these parts. And it's amazing, by the way. If you've never been in a Publix, I didn't even realize how awesome Publix is until you go other places like up north or Hawaii or just different places in the country, and like they don't have stuff like Publix. And I've had clients in this area that have moved away and they're like, I really miss Publix. I'm like, yeah, I never realized how awesome it is. Anyway, they have commercials during the holidays, during Thanksgiving time, that I remember seeing when I had TV, when I had cable, that would just make me tear up and cry every time. And it's the commercial, they have a salt and pepper shaker. It's for Thanksgiving, and it's a salt and pepper shaker. And one is a little pilgrim, like old man, and the other one is a little pilgrim lady. And the commercial is them just being passed around all around the table. And you see their little porcelain salt and pepper shakers, but their faces like are sad and worried, and like they're worried about the other one, and where do they go? And they're just being handed all around the Thanksgiving table. And then at the end of the commercial, they get put down on the table together again, and they just like smile, and they're all happy to be together again. That commercial leaves me a mess. So yes, displaced emotions. Not only that, but something else interesting that I've noticed is I was saying that furry creatures are the worst when it comes to roadkill in breaking me down and just leaving me, depressed for the rest of the day, or at least an hour or two, basically. But that's not true. You know what I think might even hit me harder than furry creatures, if not equally as hard, but honestly, maybe a little bit harder? Turtles. Turtles as roadkill. Turtles that have lost their life trying to cross the road. And I was like, why does that? Because this is what I do. I'm like, why? I always ask, like, why? What's deeper than that? I believe that it's because deep down, oh my gosh, and it's one of those things that just speaking about it could bring tears to my eyes, but turtles move so slowly that if they're crossing the road, people not only have a strong opportunity to pass them or to avoid, running them over with a tire very, very easily, but they can stop. I think everybody I know, this is interesting. I just realized this. I can think of three people I've dated. This is interesting. Just 3 people off the top of my head. That 3 ex-boyfriends, I guess you can say, have at some point stopped the car, like driving down a street, stopped the car because they saw a turtle beginning to cross the road or in the middle of the road, stopped the car, got out of the car, picked up the turtle, and put it on the other side of the road in the direction it was going. So I think it breaks my heart to see turtles as roadkill because they move so slow. And people have ample opportunity to not only miss them, but to stop and help them. And it's like somebody didn't choose to do that. Somebody was too distracted on their phone, didn't realize they hit the turtle, that's messed up in its own right. Never text and drive. For goodness sake, pay attention to the road. I learned that the hard way when I was younger because I was very fortunate in a couple of accidents when I'd first gotten my license to learn the hard way, aka by totaling my first car within a week, that you need to pay attention to the road. So, that's another little tidbit here. Anyway, back to my raccoon story. So, I hit this raccoon. I could talk about it with a little more stability at this point and not so much emotion, even though it still kills me to think about actually put myself back in the time when this happened. And this thing was the size, I swear to you, it was a healthy boy or girl. I don't know. But this thing was I would say at least a 6 to 10 pound beefy nugget of a trash kitten. It breaks my heart. I'm not trying to, dismiss the fact of what happened. It breaks my heart. And honestly, again, I'm surprised it took me this many years before this actually happened, especially living around quite a bit of nature and things. But I was on the phone with one of my best friends, actually, Blue and Pickle's dad. If you've been here for a minute, you know. Blue and Pickle's dad. I was on the phone with him. No, I wasn't holding it. It was speaker Bluetooth. I was looking at the road, so that's why, there was no distraction in that sense. And all he heard, we were talking, and then all he heard was me go, "Oh no!" And then a thump, thump, thump. I mean, you guys, this thing, it wasn't a squirrel. Like, it thumped. I went over. You felt it in the car. So all he heard was that and silence. And he goes, "Are you there? Are you okay? Are you there?" And I was just in such shock. I was just, my hand was over my mouth. Obviously, the other hand was on the steering wheel. There's nothing I could have done. And I was just in such shock of what just happened for a number of reasons. And he's like, are you there? Are you okay? And I just started just bawling, just hyperventilating, crying, to where he couldn't understand me. He thought that I'd gotten in an accident. That's how loud the thump was. That's how, you guys, he thought that I'd gotten in an accident or that I'd hit like a child, like a person, because it was that boisterous of a thumping sound, apparently, even across the phone. And I felt it. But until I finally blubbered it out that I hit a raccoon in all of my tears and wailing, crying. And at first I thought he giggled at me. At first I thought when he heard that, he started giggling and laughing. So I was like, "Are you laughing at me? Or are you like a kid?" And he was like, "Oh my God, no." Like, so I guess he wasn't, and he's not the type, he wouldn't laugh at something like that. I thought he was laughing at my reaction, because I'll admit, it was, it was pretty grand. Like I was mentioning, this is a tough thing for me. But no, he was not laughing. So that happened. And I was probably 10 minutes from my house, crying, bawling the whole time. He was just sitting there listening, bless his heart. Just being there, And I get home and I'm sitting in my driveway. I don't want to get out of my car because granted it was dark out, but I didn't want to see any residual something, maybe in the tire and the grill in the front of my vehicle. I didn't want to have to deal with it. Or I couldn't emotionally handle seeing, so it was still too soon. I mean, it just happened. So I made the choice to just get out of my car and go walk straight to my front door and just walk straight in my house without looking back at my car at that moment. And then it was a mix of, I felt guilty walking into my house because, like, and you guys, I know this might, if you're not this type of person, this might be like, sound insane to you. But listen, this is what I went through. This is how I can, justify it. But I felt guilty walking into my house to my feline fur babies, knowing what I had just done. Like, I killed one of you, not one of you, but I killed somebody in the animal kingdom, and I didn't mean to. So this is where later on that night, I realized, and what's very interesting, I brought up my EFT and tapping videos. If you didn't know, I put out a tapping stress management technique video every Tuesday on Tapping Tuesday. It helps with all kinds of fears, anxieties, just emotional blockages that you may be struggling with or suffering from. It helps to alleviate those, to neutralize them, and then help you to potentially make space to feel positive or better or accept whatever that negative thing was. So because I do that and know a lot about the emotional spectrum and things, I realized later that night, I was like, holy crap, I just went through the stages of grief in this expedited fashion because I felt within 3 or 4 hours of it happening, I went through all of the stages of grief, all the way to the last stage, which is considered to be acceptance or sometimes even potentially hope. So the stages of grief, some people say there's 5, some say there's 7. I believe there's more accurately 7. So the 7 stages of grief are considered to be shock or disbelief, followed by denial, followed by bargaining, followed by guilt, and then there's anger, and then depression, which is arguably the stage that kind of lasts the longest and is the hardest to get out of, or you kind of waver in and out of it. And then the final stage, which is considered to be acceptance or hope. Now, if you're talking about only 5 stages, people say those are denial and typically isolation, followed by anger, followed by bargaining, then depression, then acceptance. But in my experience, I like the 7-stage pattern better. I believe that's more accurate if you want to qualify these stages, because that's what, in retrospect, in reflection, I experienced an expedited version of by hitting this raccoon. So it's really interesting because as soon as I let me just take you through them real quick. And I just thought this was so interesting to share because, like I said, I consider this experience to have taken me through this faster paced or expedited version of the bereavement process or the grieving process. Because even though I have compassion for this animal, even though I was emotionally open to going through these stages and processing them, I didn't have a personal connection to the animal. So you can only imagine that if you have a closeness, or basically if you think about it, more memories with something, if you have a bundle of memories, and the way I picture it, because I'm very visual, the way I picture it is, let's say you have one of those Velcro suits on. Have you ever seen people with those Velcro suits on to where they jump on a trampoline and then jump up against a wall with the other matching Velcro and then they stick to it? So pretend you have one of these Velcro suits on and somebody you love, somebody you're close to, something like that. The memories that you share with this person, each memory is basically like a little velvet or felt ball that if someone throws it at you, it'll stick. So the longer you know somebody, the more you're around that person, the closer you are to that person, the more connection you have with that person, or even simply time, which is so precious. The more time you spend with a person, the more of these little felt memory balls that you are going to have and that are going to stick to you and apply to you until some people you're covered with these little memories, just a bundle of memories. So it's really, really difficult to pry those memories off. And that takes time and that takes effort. And, everything is based on time. So I feel, and maybe I've lost you at this point, but basically the more memories you have, the larger bundle of memories that you have with a person or an animal or whatever it may be, the more time you spent with them, the more quality time you've spent with them. It doesn't even matter what your love language is, but the more quality time and memories you share with somebody, the longer you can expect your grieving process to be. And you're still going to go through these same stages like anybody else. But what's most important is that you allow yourself to process each of these emotions fully and fully in a present way, because until you do that, you're going to just cling on to them or let these emotions stick to you. And if you don't process them and allow yourself to process them and allow yourself to feel the shock and disbelief, which that one is kind of primal, it's kind of automatic. You can't forcefully do that or not. That's kind of the initial impact of grief. In my case of hitting this animal and realizing what I'd done, I literally was in disbelief and shock that it just happened as soon as it happened. Hand to mouth, breath in, everything like that. So that one you don't necessarily allow or not. That one just physiologically will happen. Next to that is the denial. Did that just happen? You can apply it to a person. Did this person just pass away? Did that just happen? Let me take you through it just real quick before I get too complicated here. I'll just take you through exactly what happened with my little raccoon buddy. R.I.P. Bless his heart. Shock and disbelief happened right away. Denial happened right away. Did that really just happen? Did I really just hit a raccoon? I was replaying it in my head. How can that happen? No, that didn't. Wait, did that really just happen? Going back and forth. It's always a little back and forth between the disbelief and denial. Then you move on to bargaining, which can apply more often than not. I feel like that one doesn't really last too long with a lot of people. But again, it's all relative. It can with you. Bargaining and saying, okay, did this really happen, kind of back and forth with the denial. The big one is the guilt. That's the next one according to the 7 stages, which is what I'm going by. The guilt, feeling horrible about it, feeling emotional about it, feeling like you're a horrible person. And all of this, you guys, it's so interesting because I say it's expedited because I can reflect upon going through each of these fully in the 30 minutes after it happened. Which, if this is somebody you love that you lost, a pet that you loved and lost, a family member, a friend, these stages can last weeks, months, years. So that's a big difference here. But they are kind of all in one the same. So the anger and the guilt was a big one. I was angry at the city for tearing down the land that these animals, you guys in this area, don't get me started. But yes, they're building things that aren't needing to be built. They're tearing down the land. They're talking about taking land from even state park areas that people love that are untouched, that so many different creatures and animals call home. And what happens when they go to build things and when they go to tear down or take away the precious trees and forests and all those things? All of the animals in the ecosystem that existed in these areas get displaced. And where do they have to go? They find themselves moving and migrating to residential areas, to places that it's almost like people have no right, in a way, to be upset if there are more, for example, this is happening here. There's more bobcat sightings in residential neighborhoods and things. And so you really have to be careful, and you can't let your little dog out in the backyard without being monitored. You probably should put your outdoor cat inside. These bobcats have no choice. Their homes are being torn down to build what seems like car washes lately. Is there some kind of incentive? Does anybody know this? Because I've been meaning to look it up. Tons of car washes, these like giant bays of self-wash car washes and vacuum things. Why? Is that necessary? Anyway, I digress. But these bobcats, these birds, these animals, they have nowhere to go. So we can't blame them for being hungry, being driven out of their environment, out of their having to readjust the whole ecosystem, just because human beings who are the parasites of the earth, if you think about it, I mean, if the earth is the host, what are we doing? We are the parasites of the earth, are making these decisions that caused a lot of anger in me during this stage. I was angry at the fact that the raccoon had nowhere else to go but in the street, at the fact that it was our fault as the community, as humans, that are, causing them to do stuff like this. I was angry at vehicles, at the fact that cars and vehicles are these giant death machines and we're just going all around town. All of these people, some have no idea, some are not. It doesn't cross their mind, these thoughts that I'm having about, they're distracted, they're on their phones, they're driving their cars, they're in a rush to get probably to some corporate job. It was just angry. I was just so angry at the fact that the town and the world is turning into what it's turning into, that led me to hit this raccoon. So there's the anger, and you can probably find a way to apply that in, a more personal bereavement process, more personal death to you, in the anger that you felt. Maybe you were angry at the doctors for, you were angry at an assisted living facility. You were angry at a person driving a car that a loved one you have lost their life in. Maybe you were angry at yourself. You were angry at yourself for not taking care of them better if they were sick. You were angry at yourself for not calling them the day before because you were too busy watching something on YouTube. Maybe you were just angry. And it's so important. These emotions, they aren't pretty. None of the emotions, except maybe the acceptance at the end, none of these emotions are pleasant necessarily. None of these emotions are pretty. None of them are something that you want to go through, or that you enjoy, I should say, going through. But it's so important to realize and to accept and to understand that unless you go through the ugly emotions, unless you go through the challenging emotions and the challenging process, that in this case is the process of grievance, unless you go through these things, they are just going to fester in you. They are just going to manifest into things that you'll carry in your body, and potential trauma that you will carry. Because what is trauma? Trauma is a present moment feeling that you are carrying in your body due to something that has happened in the past. And oftentimes, most times, you might argue all times, clinging on to trauma means that you just haven't given yourself the opportunity to process whatever underlying challenging emotions there are to process. So back to Raccoon Gate 2021. After the anger subsided, it wavered back and forth to depression and more of a calm sadness. And then it kind of went back and forth with the guilt. Again, this isn't static. This isn't a rule book. Nobody goes through all these things there's not a time limit. You take as long as you need. There's not okay, I've moved on to anger, I'm not going to feel guilty anymore. That's not how it works. You kind of ping pong back and forth a little bit. It's kind of like a recipe. You're just whisking everything together until it gets smooth. So it's kind of a mishmash. So I got home, I parked in my driveway. I was getting a little calmer, which would align more with the depression stage of this process. I was feeling guilty, not only about what I did, but I was feeling guilty having to face the cats when I came inside the house. I was still angry, but that was kind of lessening a little bit. It would pop up again. It would pop its little head again in the next couple hours, but not like the full blown out angry that I was fortunate enough to be able to express. And this is where I think it's really important to have somebody there to simply just listen. Because I happened to be on the phone with one of my best friends, like I said, and could I have and so I was expressing this stuff out loud. I was expressing my anger. I was just letting it go. I wasn't holding back on anything. I bawled my eyes out. I let that happen. I talked about what happened and the bargaining aspect, the denial aspect, the guilt. I went into the angry rage about everything that I just told you guys I was upset about and, still kind of messed up. But it was just it was just emotional, letting it out. Could I have done that out loud to myself? Sure. Geez, I talk to myself all the time. Do you guys talk? I talk to myself. I also, in that test that was popular like last year where they ask if you have inner dialogue or inner monologue, inner dialogue. I was one of the people that don't. So I talk out loud a lot. I can't hear my own voice in my head. It's interesting. I'm more of like, I see kind of shapes and vision, like concepts. I cannot hear my own voice in my head. If that's weird, you're in the majority apparently, because I guess that's some people don't understand that. Anyway, so could I have expressed all that I expressed out loud to myself in the car? Yeah, and I probably would have. But there's something about having somebody there to sit and listen, not even to provide solutions. There really is no solution, but somebody to provide comfort, even if that comfort is literally just holding space and listening and just being there. Just somebody who's going to sit there and be there and listen. And I'm guilty, like I was talking about earlier, I'm so guilty of being solution-oriented to where, I forget where I heard this a long time ago, but I began implementing it with those close to me a year or so ago. It's one of the best pieces of advice I've ever heard. And you guys feel free to use it as well. But if somebody comes to you to tell you something, to share something with you with a problem, they're feeling down, they're feeling challenged, whatever it may be, one thing that you can ask them directly is, do you need solutions or comfort? Can I lend you comfort or solutions right now? That in itself, that little just question can help save so much potential conflict, potential frustration within communication, within a conversation. I mean, that is one of the most useful phrases I think that anyone can carry in their toolbox of just being a better listener is, what can I lend to you right now? What do you need from me right now? Is it comfort or solutions? Especially if you're a person like me who defaults to solutions when a person does not want unsolicited advice, it can really be a relationship saver. I really think it can. So back to what I was trying to relay. Having somebody there to just hold that space will help you. And for you, it could be a friend, it could be a family member. You know what? It could be a therapist, it could be a counselor. I think that everybody should have a therapist or a counselor. And nobody should depend on a friend or a close loved one to take on that role, because they shouldn't have to take on that role, and you shouldn't want them to take on that role. That should not be, especially with significant others. You never want to fall into the role of your husbands or wives or boyfriends or girlfriends' therapist. You never want to feel like their counselor. You never want to, and again, I'm guilty of this, give unsolicited advice or, just analyze and critique every little thing especially when all they need is someone to hold space and someone to listen. And I will say that my best friend did a wonderful job at this. He just sat there and listened to me just flip the F out, if you know what I mean. Like, I just allowed myself to go through these stages. I wasn't hesitant. I wasn't trying to hide it. I wasn't trying to muffle it down. I wasn't trying to judge myself for how ridiculous it may or may not have been to be reacting this way over something that some people may think is really insignificant. What matters was, to me, it was not insignificant. To me, it was very impactful. And I honored that. And by honoring that, it helped me to expedite all of these stages to where I reached that acceptance more quickly, and to where I allowed myself to just feel my feelings. And again, the emotional freedom technique, that EFT or tapping, that's how it works. That's why it's so beneficial. That's why it's so effective, because so many people just have not been equipped with the tools to process their emotions comfortably, or to simply allow themselves to process them. They simply weren't taught. And sometimes it's not your fault. It could have been your parents. It could have been your upbringing. It could have been, who knows? It could have been so many different things. But the fact is, you can change how you do that to ultimately learn and feel better and not carry these hindering emotions within you. Because ultimately they can manifest and make you ill. People will argue, and I am a believer that certain things can, if you leave them unexpressed, if you let them just simmer and fester within yourself, it's like putting a lid on a boiling pot of water. It's not good for you. It affects you physically and physiologically. It can affect your blood pressure. It can affect your mental state. It's just so important to allow yourself to go through emotional stages and to feel the feelings. I know I just said that, but it's the truth. So I thought this would just be, it initially was just, hey guys, I hit my first roadkill. I hit a raccoon. But I thought it gave a really good opportunity to speak about the stages of grief and the fact that there are stages. They're imperfect. They are relative to you. But it's important that you not only allow yourself to go through these stages and to fully put yourself in these feelings in order to process them, because they're not just going to disappear. But second to that, to do your best to find a way to express them with somebody who knows to listen, somebody who's willing to listen, somebody who cares about you, or, you know what, somebody you pay for to listen, like a therapist or a counselor. And I know there's a generation, baby boomer and older, who a lot of people, because a lot of people say their parents who are in that generation and things, that clients of mine, and they will say, their parents never been to a therapist, never had counseling. And, there's a whole other aspect of generational trauma that can be healed through these modalities and through the services that are out there. It's something you can express through writing. If you enjoy writing, you can keep a journal. And that can also help you to process these emotions. The most important thing is to release them from yourself. So speaking to a person who's just there to hold space and listen, not judge, not analyze, not critique. And again, remember, they don't have to give you solutions. If you let them know, look, I need comfort right now. I'm not looking for solutions. I just need to get some things off my chest. I just need to get some things out of my head. Writing is an option, like I just mentioned. You can brain dump, journal. Just release it. That's all it is. You go through the stages of grief. You go through these emotions and you release them. So eventually, at the end of my episode with Mr. Raccoon, R.I.P., you lived your best life. I hope you got good trash before this unfortunate incident. At the end of it, I gained this perspective. It was a reminder of the stages of grief and how they work and everything I've spoken about today. How you just take your time with them. Be patient with yourself. But the most important thing is to allow yourself to go through them, to not stuff things down, and to accept that emotions have reason and they flow and they ebb and flow. They come and go. Emotions are not permanent. They're a tool. They help you to temper and gauge things that may be going on in your life, and they help you to process maybe unfortunate things or the difficulty of death, and to come out on the other side and be okay. And eventually to give you another opportunity to feel gratitude and practice that because you did have the time with a person, or you did have the memories that you have to learn the lessons that you did, that you were so fortunate to have grown and experienced whatever you experienced with this person. Or in my case, since me and Mr. Raccoon, R.I.P., lived your best life, since I didn't have this personal connection to him, it allowed me to be grateful for my friend who was on the phone listening to me be a hot blubbering mess and not judge me for it. So in the end, there is a silver lining. There is, a little positive glimmer of hope to remind you that even in circumstances like this, even in the painful times of grief, there's always something worthwhile that comes out of it. And it's also always important to remember that the price of love is grief. So this can be a whole different other coloring in conversation, because I don't even know how long I've been talking, but I think it's been plenty long. But it's just, it's important to know that a lot of people are scared to love because they find, and I've known people that kind of catastrophize and think loss is inevitable. And so it steals the opportunity from them to truly be 100% in anything, to truly love something, to just put all of their heart in something, because they haven't yet realized that the price of love is that grief. But as long as you know how to process the grief, as long as you trust in that process and feel the emotions, then you'll be okay. And ultimately, it's all worth it. So I think I will end this here. I hope that you guys enjoyed this coloring in conversation. Please feel free to let me know your thoughts in the comments below if you stuck with me this long. I know this was a lengthy one. I should set a timer. And let me know if you like these. Let me know if there's another subject or something that you want to hear me chime in on. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I can have somebody else around to kind of, what is this going to turn into a podcast? I don't know, but maybe someone so it's not just me talking to myself or to you or to the cat that's across the room right now sleeping on the couch. But as always, thank you so much for listening. This was how my little picture turned out. I hope you enjoy it. Remember, you can grab a coloring book for yourself and even color with me as I'm doing this. We can have little dates together whenever these come out. And you can get that off Amazon. I'll link it in the description below. You guys have a wonderful holiday season. I'm going to do my best to put out some one of these every Monday this month. So every Monday in December. And if you like them, I'll keep them going. But I appreciate you all so very much. Please be kind to yourselves. Be patient with yourselves. Share this with somebody who you think may find some insight or some comfort, or a solution from what was shared today. And yeah, have a beautiful day. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.